Today on the Transplant Helper, I'm going to be reminding you about one thing you really need to consider during this season that I think will hopefully help you to feel better and, more than that, to stay well. Stay tuned.
Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to become part of the Transplant Helper community.
Hey folks, welcome back to Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Merle, and yes, it is a beautiful, beautiful time of year, particularly here in South Central Alabama. It's a wonderful time. It's springtime. It's my favorite season of the entire year. Everything is out. Everything is blooming. The trees are beautiful. All the leaves are everywhere. The flowers are popping up, even in the wild. It's just a pretty time. And you know already by being around me a little bit through these videos, I love to get outdoors. I mean, literally, I probably spend 4, 5, 6 hours a day just outdoors for no other reason, just to sit out and soak up the sun and sit out and enjoy the beauty that God has created. And when I do that, typically I'll go for walks. I'll, just go for rides in the car, whatever. I just love to look at nature, and it's a great time to do that. However, there is something creeping around out there that has been really, really difficult on me the last few weeks, really my entire family, and really anybody who lives in an area like we do, and that is included with all that blooming. There's also a ton of pollen, particularly tree pollen. Is very, very difficult. And in my area, although I'm surrounded by hardwoods and they do drop some pollen, that's kind of difficult. The real enemy in our area are actually pine trees. I don't know if you've ever been around or exposed to pine pollen, but it's the worst. It's that yellow dust that covers everything inside. It'll be so thick on the vehicles, on any outdoor furniture or patios. You walk outside and spend too long, you'll be knocking it out of your hair. I walked outside just yesterday, and my dog had been laying out in the gravel there behind the house asleep, and he had yellow pollen all over him to the point you could see it. So he got up and shook off. But, it's just out there. And when that pollen gets in us, when we breathe it in, it can get rather difficult, no doubt about it. Allergic reactions, allergies, histamines being heightened, all that type of stuff can be a real problem for us right now. So I would encourage you, and I know we've kind of been practicing this for a year because of the virus, I would encourage you, if you're going to be outdoors, even though you're safe as far as the virus, you might want to wear a mask, something like a VOGMASK while you're outdoors, just to be certain that you've got that little bit of a barrier just to keep some of that out. Now, you're not going to keep it all out. Obviously, it gets in your eyes, your ears. If you don't understand it, I'm glad you don't. Maybe you live in an area where it doesn't exist to this extent. But for right now, for a few weeks, that's where we live. And I think you ought to be cautious when you go out, be limiting of where you go and how you go, and maybe even wear a mask. And by the way, the VOGMASK company just came out with a brand new app that you can get on an Android or an Apple device. Download the app. And if you download the app now, between now and April the 30th, they're going to be offering an additional 20% discount just for ordering through the app. So yeah, that's my VOGMASK commercial. I think it's the best mask you can buy, but nonetheless, get the app, get the VOGMASK app, and then make your order through that and receive an additional 20% off your first offer or first order before April 30th. But back to what we're talking about. I think the pollen, even though, it gets in me, and it has this past few days, keeping my voice and, keeping my nose from pouring or my head from hurting has been difficult. Although that's problematic within itself, I think it's more problematic for basically two reasons. Number one, it causes us to ignore the real issues. Now, not all the time. A lot of times we go outside, we get exposed to the pollen, to all that's blooming. You get kind of cold-like symptoms, you get the allergies, you step back and say, well, it's just allergies, I'm not going to worry about it. And that's true. The majority, probably most of the time, at least here around Alabama, between about late March-ish to really about the first part of June. That's pretty much how we're going to be. However, I want you to be very cautious with that, because too many times when I get symptomatic, when my nose gets stopped up, my throat gets sore, eyes get watery, whatever, or maybe I even get a little bit of a tinge of a fever, which can actually come with allergies sometimes. I want to ignore that, and I shouldn't. That should be an opportunity to kind of recheck, to rethink myself, to be sure that there's not something else going on. It may even be a cause for calling your team or letting your primary physician know that you're having some issues, and maybe they'll call in some allergy meds, maybe they'll suggest something over the counter, or maybe they'll even want to go as far as to test you to make sure that you're not having other problems or other things that could be carrying the same symptoms. So just be cautious. Don't allow the allergy pollen or the pollen that causes the allergies to keep you from getting medical care. Number two, and I think we really need to understand this, because you and I, as transplant patients being immunosuppressed, I think this is important, and that is be cautious even when you have allergies, because if you get sick with something, and it doesn't have to be anything severe, it doesn't have to be COVID, it doesn't have to be the flus, the colds, the viruses that we typically know. Even when you're sick with allergies, your body still on the inside, through histamines and antibodies, they're fighting hard to try to get this out of you. They're fighting hard to try to expel this stuff from your body, whether it be through coughing or sneezing or that nose draining or whatever. But even on the inside, these antibodies, these histamines, they're really just kind of duking things out, trying to get rid of whatever it is that's going on. And the thing is that I oftentimes forget or fail to see is that, yes, even though it's allergies, if my body's fighting hard to beat the allergy or to beat that, whatever's caused by the pollen, they're oftentimes fighting so hard here till they miss something over there. Till it could be that you have an underlying something else that's been brewing, that's kind of been, just there. And because their attention has been called to what seems to be the immediate problem, something else gets left out. And I've definitely done that before, not necessarily with springtime allergies, but fall time allergies, where I'll have allergies, legitimate have allergies during the fall, from all the leaves that are falling, just the crushed up dirt and dust. And that's what we have around here anyway. But I'll have legitimate allergies there in the fall. And then while my immune system is working toward that, I'll end up with a flu, something that I wouldn't normally get if I was just healthy and, I'm vaccinated for the flu and something I wouldn't normally get. But because my body is weakened by working so hard here, it may not be able to work hard enough over here, or it may not notice something over there. And so just keep that in mind, that a lot of things that we might consider harmless, like an allergy, can eventually become problematic if something underlying kind of slips in the back door and gets in and starts working on us. In addition to that, you've known many times when you've had kind of that head cold, those allergy type symptoms, and if not treated well and handled quickly, that can kind of seemingly fall down into your lungs and become a respiratory issue. And so again, problems arise there. But just be cautious of your body, and then be aware that this main factor that you're noticing right now may be masking or hiding an underlying factor, or at least something that may sneak in at the end and cause a real problem. And so overall, as beautiful as springtime is, let's be careful out there. Stay stronger, friends.